All right, here we go again. Buckle up. Rough roads ahead for all of them. So, a lot to speak about. Didn't really know what I was going to speak about tonight. I was going to speak about the flood, but I think kind of talked out on that. I at least tried to transfer my information. I don't know if the spies and agents blocked it or not. They'll pass some on and then say it's them sometimes and claim credit for what I do. It seems like the whole planet does that. But again, God will excise all of you in the afterlife if you stole my credit. So I just want to say something. Nothing wrong with the LDS Church, but what I'm going to say is this. God made sure, again, one of the LDS guys says, well, you were being prepared the whole time that, you were working up to this. Now, it's bigger than what that gentleman was thinking. Right. So one of the things God did was build me up so I would never doubt my salvation. So there's no church or religion that can hold that over me. You see. So there is a woman who's playing a game. First, she gives me the eyes. She wants me to hit on her so she can get me excommunicated or something like that. But they're believing their BS. I don't hit on women. I talk to women, but I don't hit on them. Right. So I know for sure now that she is because she did the second one. In other words, if you're a person and you act like you're afraid of me, I'll reach out to you more so. Right. I don't reach out to you because you're trying to have sex with me. So that failed, right? So they gathered together. Well, how can we get them interested? Well, she acts like she's afraid of me, which I would try to, reach out to her. But then she'll probably say, well, this guy won't let me be. Look, here he is on the camera talking to me again. Right. So what you might have, what the Lord passed on, you might have an excommunication scam going on in your churches, in the LDS churches. You might have groups of CIA, FBI, local police, but they're criminals, okay? They're part of criminal enterprise. Right. So they might be trying to get certain people excommunicated and setting them up. And some of those people actually did what they allege, but they're psyoped into it. Again, there's a whole series of things. They're using the church system to psyop a victim. The LDS Church is a church where you can use that Rainier sex cult model, depletion and obedience and all that. No. Sorry. So you have to be careful of that. Right. So the Lord, so what happened earlier, it might be a hack. I told the guy at Samsung to get with his security guy and tell him it could be a hack and to look to see if it was a hack. So I get this email. First off, I thought it was fake, but it wasn't. But it did have the wrong phone on there. I turned in a 512 gigabyte Samsung, and they have a 256 gigabyte Samsung listed. So he looked at the film and said, yeah, you turned in the right, we're going to get that fixed. Because it's telling me I got to pay him $750. 6 months later. So I'm thinking of trying to regulate this thing anyway. I think whatever the you can turn the phone back window is, that's the window for the corporation to accept your phone. If you can turn it back to them in 30 days, when that 30 days is up, they can't tell you you have to pay for the trade-in, as long as you send that trade-in within the time window. Right. I agree. But I guess, it maybe doesn't happen all that much. So the reason I'm saying it's a hack is they're operating me. So what they'll say is, oh, he's reacting to the woman that did this or the man that did that. But in reality, they're, sending me emails that I have to pay, $750, and then they'll do this and they'll do that. They'll stop my package from coming in from Israel, that kind of thing. And say it's all about something else. So again, that woman is it's not an investigation, I'll tell you that. It's a crucifixion. I'll just tell you that, okay? So what they projected at me while I was on the phone, they said, you better be careful, we'll get you excommunicated from the LDS Church. So again, I was able to investigate with the Lord some additional things when they projected that. Right, that there's probably an LDS or a cell of people within the LDS churches that are running an excommunication scam. But I said, excommunicate me. The Lord assured me of my salvation. I'll excommunicate the church from God. I'll go the step higher. You can excommunicate me from a church, and I won't excommunicate you from God if it's just some nonsense. But again, if you are trying to be deep state in a church, a criminal enterprise in a church, because when I say deep state, it means a criminal enterprise, then I'll excommunicate you from God. And why do I know I can do that? Because God gave me the idea. He said, just tell him you'll excommunicate him from me. See? So I was being prepared. Thank you, Larry. Well, nobody wants to mess with it because it does involve spy operators, and then they got to worry about their kids and their family and their wife. Right. Well, part of what my wife and I would do, which probably got us in trouble with the deep state racists, well, she was Asian and I was American right then and there. A lot of people, even people in the LDS church here would probably be mad if I had a mixed marriage. Now, it's not everybody, I know that. A lot of people don't speak their mind, but they are racist. But, we would take people that were being killed and give them, feed them and stuff like that. They were on the outs and all that. So if they come into the church, we'd say, you want to go to lunch. We got, food in back then I was a meat eater. We had chicken and stuff in the crock pot, fall off the bone. All right. And a big table we bought from Montgomery Ward. I don't remember how many people you could see. I think like 15 or 16. I guess it had to be an even number, like 16. They took up the whole dining room. The people on the end, they had just enough room to get it, to move their chair back. Montgomery Ward. It was one of those cherry ones. It was a nice table. And we would have people over for lunch after church. Yeah, and that, Deep State got upset when they see that. Right? But again, also people, like when I was with the Sikhs, they were like, you got to be careful. Because I was like, I invited some of the people that were, on the outs. And he said, we got to be careful who you invite. So I knew it wasn't real. And of course, over the years, it turned out to be, I guess a sex cult or something. And I'm not investigating a sex cult. I'm just trying to go live my life. You just got to let me live my life. All right. Thanks, Larry. So again, you get in trouble when you're getting marshal service. You're too nice to the people that they hate, that kind of thing. And that include FBI agents. I don't think it's just some inmate prisoner that I gave gospel tracts to, or inmate prisoners I gave gospel tracts to. They hate the FBI. And like when an FBI agent comes in that the deep state's killing, which was probably a bunch of them, because remember how they treated you? Right. They treat them horrible. But they can't come up to me and say, treat that agent horrible. So what happens is the agent gets the royal treatment. Right. And they get some mad. So those same patterns of behavior, those satanic patterns of behavior are found all over the place. Like they're going to rule me to accept racism and things like that. Now again, there are black people hate white people. There's people that are Latino. A lot of Latinos are supremacists. Until you change, I'm not going to say anything, or I'm not going to say anything outside of that. I mean, again, some of you Latino people are nice, but as a whole, your communities are racist and supremacist. I agree. So all those years of that game gotchas. Because it's not all about criminal aliens. People are fed up with that attitude. And again, you lock white people out of your communities. I know that. I've been there. You cancel white people. Cancel black people. Now, Puerto Ricans aren't as bad, but Latinos is from Central and South America. They grew up with that system, and they bring it here. Again, some people here use it, but it's a lot harder to eradicate when there's so many undocumented people running that system, because then they're for hire. You can pay them money, and they'll do deep state work all day. Hope one day they get their citizenship. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that could be a possibility. If you mess up, I don't see the others people messing up enough. But if you mess up enough, we'll excommunicate all of you from God, your entire church. and I can feel the prophets. That's the way it should be, right? But not in a bad way. You know what I mean, right? We just kind of train you up while you're excommunicated from God. In fear and admonition. Satan always tries to get me afraid of the Lord. Again, maybe I'd be afraid of the Lord if the Lord was actually hurting me. That's scary, because it says in the Bible that I'm bad if I'm not afraid of God. But again, I'm God's son, and I didn't have a father. And of course, here comes the CIA and FBI psychologist to BS your mind. Well, see, this is where it comes from. He's just crazy because he didn't have a father. Larry. No, I figured out that this thing here kind of fits the LDS idea of God. I just downloaded it, but a while back. But I don't have a problem with anybody's religion, really. I think all your religions were well-meaning and are well-meaning for whatever purpose God had to bring them on. Again, what God told me is this: if you have an answer as to why would God bring religion, because so many bad things were done in the name of religion, is more people would be helped and saved through religion than would be harmed. So again, God's going to work with whatever He's got. It's the planet; it's not God. There's nobody like God. Which is funny. That's my middle name. So it's really funny how this is all happening. How now I have my Jewish name. So I had this feeling about my names. It kept coming up. Was it more like because Mur is like Moror, I guess, or something like that. I don't know what the accent is on it. But, right. So. So I was wondering if it was that, but it was just like, I guess God juked and left before He juked right. And I would talk about Moshe, and I would talk about Judah, Yehuda. That's my names. See, that's how you know God exists, It's just sad. This land's so sad. Even if humans weren't here, I couldn't give it a go. Blame God. God keeps showing me the YouTube videos. It wasn't me. It's God's like, oh, look at it. Look at it. Look at it. Who wants something like that? You got a lion ripping apart a gazelle. That's a long story. One thing you always have to remember is what I said about God. God is a hostage negotiator, negotiating your release so you can go back home. So everything that a hostage negotiator uses, God uses. And hostage negotiators will say things just to get the hostages free. Right. Thank you. And it doesn't matter, really. It doesn't matter. Once you get home, you're going to probably wake up and want everybody else to come home, and you can't stay in heaven. You're not going to stay in heaven, none of you. And I think a lot of the LDS, have figured that out, and they could have been hearing me for years. Right? God takes my voice and the things I say and moves it. I just have to say it on the planet, is what God said. Now, He preferred that I say it as a spirit, but once I'm in a body, it's even more so that it works. No, there was no reason for me to take a body. I'm not that kind of creation to take a body. It's just not a fair planet, and never going to get a fair shake on a planet like this. And that was the goal, just for me to get a fair shake. And I mean, you'd have to give me $1 billion, but what actually has to happen is my life has to succeed. It's not a money figure. I could be like have less income, but if my life succeeded, then it would be okay. Right. Thank you, Larry. I don't know how many witnesses there are, but I'm one of them. There's more than two, I'll tell you that. I'm not one of those witnesses in the scripture. In that particular scripture where there was two witnesses. So you see, God's not stupid. Like he's going to tell Satan everything. Satan's all the time going, let me find two witnesses. Herod, let me find that kid to kill. Now, Herod was evil. I don't know why the synagogues and Jews think he wasn't. He was harming rabbis and everything. And Jesus, again, was just another rabbi. That's why I like quoting from the Orthodox Jewish Bible, because it helps Jews see Jesus in the right light. You can't even get to a what they call Jews for Jesus, the Messianic Jews. You can't even get to them to make a Jew go, oh, okay. But if you go, especially with Schneerson and his group, the Kabod, I don't know, I call them Shabbat, but it's Kabod. All right. Thanks, Larry. Rebbe Shiach. But you read it, like, wait a minute. And then, like, I could tell somebody was looking that was Jewish. And when Mary's name was Miriam, they lost it. Like, her name was Miriam? That's what Mary's real name is, Miriam. So you see how Satan works, right? Nah, he's just, who knows what it was supposed to be. But he was really, on earth, he was a rabbi, and he was doing the rabbi thing. And he was extending Judaism to the rest of the world. And then it fell apart somewhere along the way, but, we got good and bad off of it. It's kind of like a work of Solomon. Yeah, Herod was no Solomon. Agreed. So I got my new tallet, and it's nice. I ordered a clip for it. I tried seeing if I can order like just a generic one from like a shawl clip, but boy, the heathen energy coming off those would have killed my tallis. Okay. So I ordered something. It's silver, not gold, but I remembered I had my gold finger. It's like a finger paint. It's a rub to color it, and I think it works. I just don't want it to come off on my tallis and make a mess. So I think it dries. I got to go test it on some metal. Well, I ordered express mail from Israel, and it's supposed to convert into priority mail when it gets to the United States. And it left customs on the 3rd, and it doesn't look like it moved. Well, I'm not sure if there's some sort of issue with post office or not. Well, it gets a little difficult with tithing and everything because I do have to spend money on this stuff. This is never going to end. And again, LDS is a church that understands that, whether you believe it or not. Because they do. Some of their people actually do that. Again, it would have been great for me if, in the beginning when the LDS was coming in, the information, and then the Jewish information was coming in, to my mind, and what actually happened with the rabbis and what happened when Jesus was here, and it just would have been better because I could have helped them with their efforts to recreate Judaism to a certain degree, because they'll go through that with their children. They'll have like what they call it, a youth group program where they do something to recreate Judaism, ancient Judaism and things like that. Right. Really messed up my life and messed up what I could have did for people. But God, when I say that, God says, well, Larry, you did it. Everything I needed you to do, you did. You change the world. You change the future of all the creation that comes through this place. Because the devil's lost credibility. You know, one of the first things I did was try to get the devil saved. I really did. Get them to accept salvation. I mean, in a vision, I led, was it Lucifer? I led Lucifer to salvation. So I knew at a certain point that Lucifer was saved, that part had already passed. I told Lucifer, you know, no promises. I mean, you're evil. You're evil, Lucifer. He goes, I know. I said, but you know, I would go to God. If I were you, Lucifer, I'd go to God and I'd beg forgiveness. And then he kind of disappears. Well, all of a sudden I hear this like trump. And all of a sudden this demon, because you look like a demon. And all of a sudden this demon turns back into an angel, a beautiful angel, and goes up into the sky. That was in Miami. So Lucifer has repented. Well, there's plenty more behind him. I mean, people just waiting to fall all day long. So that's why little sin isn't a big deal, because people are full-fledged devils, and that's where the sin comes from. Again, Rabbi Yeshua ben David, a.k.a. Jesus, and all the disciples were trying to explain how that works. Now, I do believe it's in some of the Jewish stuff also. Well, what are you healing? What are you doing to heal? What is there that you're healing away? You're healing the curse away. And the will of others is a curse on that person. So a good way to call it is a curse, but it takes many forms. Gossip. You're healing what the gossipers put on them. Thank you, Larry. Don't know who it is, but the Spirit said thank you. Well, there's going to be more people than they can deport out there. It's going to be like a smorgasbord. Well, they got to get the numbers down below something. I don't know what those numbers are, but right. Oh, she bombed it out. Yeah. Osceola, Sheriff Lopez is why. Got my command center here. Well, do I hate that sheriff? Well, he shouldn't have done it, but I mean, there's worse things happening in Florida at the hands of law enforcement, okay? But it's a novel case because they finally said the buck stops here. And hopefully that's well, once you prosecute somebody that big, then the word gets out and we hope they go straight before they have to be found. Right. That's how it's supposed to work. Well, because law enforcement gets stuck in this corruption because people, sometimes are forced into it. Sometimes they just everybody's accepting it, so they accept it. Peer pressure. Right. But once we start doing that, we start prosecuting. We take it slow. We have one case, and then hopefully they all pull back and get away from it. Right. They use fear to keep them in. Again, you know how criminals work. You got to stick together because, otherwise we all go down together. And that's what they do. They recruit these people to go after me, and they use that on them. Right. Again, here's something. Just wow. Can we appreciate the fact that a team from Mexico is in Texas helping with the search and rescue? Believe it or not, they do that a lot. And it isn't about bashing and hating people, although people are part of the deportation thing are like that. It's it's the same as every other community in the world. There's racism this way and that way. So it's not about hating on Central Americans. It's just we can't even help Central Americans with what's happened in this country due to the immigration of unlawful and irregular immigration. So we can restore it so we can actually help them and help them assimilate. Again, the idea of assimilation is not rude or bad. I mean, you should accept some. Obviously, we all love Mexican food, or most of us. I don't eat it like I used to. I used to eat all the time. Especially, I loved the food when I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Right. So, it's not that idea, to hate their culture. But the idea is they'll do better if they assimilate, and then they won't be held captive in their own communities. They'll be able to move into these other communities and be part of the other communities much better. Again, some have assimilated, and they call them up. Hey, you kind of in Spanish, can you translate for me? What's going on? What am I supposed to do? Well, you should have assimilated better. We should have been able to assimilate. So again, there needs to be an assimilation program where they go through some training to help them understand. Because Afghans had no clue that they were going to go, that the guy was going to get 20 years for raping a child. Because in his country, they don't even look at it. Now, I'm saying it's wrong, but we should have given them classes and tell them, look, this is dead serious. You touch a child, you could spend the rest of your life in jail. And that's one of the problems with over-immigrating, because that culture comes here, and they feel comfortable because that culture is all around them. Right. Thank you, Larry. So, again, God reminded me again that the trans people are last still. Well, they probably get a pass. They probably get a pass bigger than everyone else. Singular. Well, it's horrible to have to be that. I had this thing happen when I was in California. I had no idea what was going on for sure, and maybe she was psyoping me. I don't know, and you would call her he. I would go to the Hare Krishna temple. I love Indian food, and as far as I can tell, it's probably the healthiest food for me to eat. So I would go to, every so often, I would go to the lunch at the Hare Krishna. It was the other organization, not ISKCON. It was, I forget what they call them, but it was like a Hare Krishna temple, and you go in there and eat. You pay, it's buffet. You pay a certain amount of money, and you go buffet. But they also had a gift shop, and I go down a gift shop. And back then, I was like a buff bodybuilder. And that's not why my body screwed up. It's because they, did the other stuff and didn't let me have a relaxed life. Right? And then also pushed me out of massage, pushed me out of yoga. But they were looking at what makes me healthy. And they would push me out of everything that made me healthy, using psyop and psychological torture, probably even drugging me. So there was a trans woman that worked in the gift shop. And they dressed like an Indian. It was an American, but dressed like an Indian woman. So, that's the first time I actually tried to be like, I just wanted to be nice to people that were living that kind of life, or in other lives, people that were the last people, the people that were having the most issue succeeding on earth. So I didn't have long conversations with her, but it became apparent that she wore makeup. Because one day I'm walking, and she didn't have her makeup on, just like a woman. And she was all upset. And that's all I could figure. I was like, there's no reason for her to be upset, unless she was playing me like the deep state did. But I didn't think so. I think she's just upset because I saw her without her makeup. Right. It was kind of weird. But, who knows? She could have been deep state me. Because when a person acts upset, I try to move closer towards them. The deep state knows that. And that's not part of the investigation. It shouldn't be. Right. But I try to, make them feel better and feel okay with who I am and who they are, kind of thing. And they'll use that to, say, oh, he's stalking somebody. So they're nuts, believe me. So that was weird. I was like, what? But they got busy, and what they do is they bring people in the community in, and the BS starts, and they believe the BS, right? And they start cursing you down and out. So that's why I couldn't stay there. So I, of course, the yoga place couldn't get the up I was giving it while it was working. And it's not self-centered. I mean, if you're not stable, you shouldn't be running a yoga place. And I'm sure they lived out their life in yoga, greatness. And one of the women turned out, probably all of them, turned out to be the Burning Man type people. And that's, it's okay. It's kind of scary, though. Too much like heathen worship. Right. Yeah, I never figured it out, I guess, when I was in Santa Fe, because they were psyoping me the whole time. But if I would have really looked at it, they had like a Burning Man there. Right. It's like heathenism. Right. And they all go there once a year and burn the thing, and and they're probably pretty heathen there. Right. They're Catholic and Christian, but they're heathens. Right. Again, Satan took over the religions. No matter, even if you're in the LDS, you have to realize Satan took your religion over a little bit, and you can't see it. Again, I'm not saying you're Satanist, but Satan took over your religion and changed things. And of course, you through your life, you've seen additional things. Say, wait a minute, why are we doing it this way? We need to do it that way. Right. And right now, you're on a push to expand the temple. Right. LDS have their own Silk Road program. I'm going to beat China. So again, there's a lot there. You're spending money to reach these communities. Right. Where maybe before you didn't think it was, wasn't that valuable or as valuable as you see it today. So again, what do you see people? So what you should do is see was it Kabir that saw that? I think it was Kabir. And I put that online before, and I'll see if I can find it again. There was a Sikh person, and what was his actual religion? He may have been actually Islamic, but he was like a Sufi, and he was part of Sikhism. But I have to look to make sure. He may have been Hindu. I don't know. So if you study Sikhism, there was a lot of people of other religions within their religion back then. And he saw God in all of creation, because every time I look at somebody, I see you. And I've been there. I mean, when I was being purified and I was studying all the scriptures, and I was really up there, and I would see it. And actually, the Bible tells you that God is within all of creation, in each creation. That's what we're supposed to see. Or I guess that'd be almost. It's a byproduct of this place. We wouldn't see it in the place we came from, because it's not necessary. We say, you, I see you in everybody that I look at. And that's true, because, it says it in Job. Right. And other places. Thanks, Larry. No, I don't know how long I'll be with the LDS. I'm surprised it lasted this long. They may need to move more money into the LDS system. Here's $1 million. Just do what we say. Hey, what's his name? Not Oaks, the other guy. I can't believe I can't remember his name. Cursed me to forget his name because I'm connected to him. Right. Or maybe you've cursed for his name to be forgotten, so we'll restore that. He's been on the earth a long time, so he went through a lot of cursing. Right. Nelson, that's it. Actually, when I said, here's $1 million, just do what we say, Nelson just gave me $1 million. But they'll kill it, Nelson. It never manifested. Never manifests. So when I said them saying, here's $1 million, do what we say, it became Nelson's, President Nelson, Prophet Nelson's face and voice in my mind. He said, here's $1 million, just do what we say. And just as I changed this, right? Right. Nelson's laughing at something. He's getting old, he said. Getting old. I feel old, Nelson, but when I see you, I think maybe I do have some years left. You encourage me, Nelson. You look older than me. And if he may not know that we're having this conversation, this is how the inside works when you're a Sears. And God says, not supposed to work like that. It's supposed to work perfect. But, all right. It's so funny how the number of steps coincides with the time, by, very close. No, I'm serious. I want to change my name. Because I'm like, he's like, can I have your name, sir? I'm like, Lawrence Moore. I'm like, yeah. Sounds like somebody can curse Samsung for being evil. I wonder if I can maybe I'll try to become a rabbi. I could be a reform rabbi probably somehow if I worked on it in the next few years. I'll go to like seminary 24 hours a day. Become a rabbi. My name, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbis back in the day, the old neighborhood, a lot of the rabbis had great sense of humor, right? Because they sit in shiva, do a lot of that, and they try to do. That's what a lot of them do. They try to inject a little bit of humor, trying to get everybody relaxed. Yeah, in our family, my father died, and then we had Grandpa Sam, who was my Bubby's second husband, right? And he passed on shortly thereafter also. So my brother's recreating that video, the cartoon, it's a television cartoon of where, I can't remember, was it Popeye or whoever it was, and they're holding the cape that the bull charges at in front of an anvil, right? And the bull charges in the anvil, right? So my brother, we had those big radiators in our house that would heat our house, those iron radiators. So my brother Steve, he recreates that cartoon, and I charge at the cape, and I run into the radiator, and I needed like 3 stitches, and Grandpa Sam came over in his old blue station wagon. And he drove me to Einstein Hospital. I got 3 stitches. Thanks to him. He was funny when he wanted to be funny, but he smoked cigars and just be a grumpy guy. But he had these like Jewish people back then had a lot of things like little what are they? The Ashkenazi people. They had like little funny things, little ditties they would say. So he'd like, and he'd say it, and then I forget what the words were. Actually, his name was Shmuel, but we called him Sam. He was probably a gangster when he was younger. We got like when he passed on, Bubby wanted all his junk out of the house because Bubby was like a neat freak, and Sam was like the opposite. And the basement was just loaded with all his, tool. He just, collect. He was a junk collector, but he would what he really did was he would get to go for the vacuums. When people would throw the vacuums out, he would fix the vacuum and sell it. Right. So Sam and Bubby worked for Social Security, so she had a pretty good income, and and we're living in the old neighborhood, Right. And I started seeing these photos of Sam from in the early days. He looked a good-looking guy. But he's Atlantic City. There was a Jewish mob in Atlantic City. I think Bubby told me he was a mobster. I can't remember. Sam was a mob, in the mob or something. All right. Nice guy when he was older. But who knows? He just could have been like one of those money, like Trump. They do their money stuff, right? But he was a really nice car. From I don't know what year, the 30s or something. They all had suits and stuff and hats and. So Sam was like, we'll go. He'd be part of the Atlantic City Jew mob or whatever it was. He didn't have a lot of money, but right. That's what he was when he was younger. Yeah, probably running numbers or something. Right. But I think he got the bug. Yeah. See, in my family, people, the big thing, like we weren't big drinkers. But except for Bubby, she would swig off a quart while she was cooking. She only did that when she was younger for a little bit. I guess in the summer when it was real hot. So the thing was, we had gamblers. The racetrack. They go to the racetrack and gamble their money. So Sam had a problem with that. Bubby used to get so mad because Bubby's really thrifty, and she'd see the packs of those tickets from the Liberty Bell racetrack. She gets so mad. I think she even broke into some Yiddish, so I wouldn't know what she was saying. And he never won. There was a bunch of them. A lot of them beat it, beat the habit and all that. But it takes some years. Yeah, we spent a lot of time with Bubby. And in Bubby's house. So I'm this little kid, and Bubby tells me, but one of my cousins, and they got in trouble with the law. They had an insurance company, and they were outside the law, so they required them to abstain for 5 years from the insurance business, and then they could come back, and they have to keep do it right. Right. So I think it was diversion. But was it Denise or Debbie? I don't remember. It was one of my female cousins. So Bubby tells me, well, I'm like a little kid. So she puts me in charge. We're at the top of these steps. Bubby had back in the day, I guess they were considered servants' entrances, but this was just a row home in Philly at that point. Right. Or the back stairs. Usually that's they would bring you up food or whatever, if it was, back when it was built, it was probably an expensive house, right? But we had a bigger row home than we did. And so we're at the top. It's a little, narrow staircase that rounds around. And we're at the top. And Bubby's like, well, hold her hand and help her go down the steps. So I tell her, because I'm not walking down it either. I kind of shimmy. I told her shimmy on her butt, and she took 3 steps. Bubby's like, I told you to watch. I'm like, I'm a kid. I mean, I didn't say it, but I'm like, I'm a stupid kid, All right. But I tried to she didn't know any English, I guess. He was too young or something. Or didn't understand me. I say, scoot on your butt. And she tried walking down. Yeah, you get stitches. That was her bout with stitches. Over to Einstein Hospital for stitches. Right. So we must have had a Deborah in the family. Right. I don't know who that is then. Because she was named after somebody, I'm sure. Probably in Bubby's family. Or maybe Sam's. I don't know. Maybe Sam's family. Because we didn't go back on Sam's family because he's not our blood, but the geology guy, or the Ancestry.com guy in the LDS Church has him in the tree. I guess because he's step relation. We could probably baptize Sam next, right? He's older, right? He meets that 100-year rule. All right, stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do. Praise God.